Hey sis, and welcome to the Beauty System Podcast, where we discuss the science behind beauty. We are your hosts, Maya Elaine
and Maya Nicole, and together we will dissect important topics for women of color with the goal of making science, technology, engineering, and math concepts more accessible and relatable to everyday life.
Let's get into this episode.
Hey sis, welcome to the Beauty System Podcast, where we discuss the science behind beauty. My name is Maya Nicole.
And I am Maya Elaine.
And we are your hosts. And together we will dissect important topics for women of color with the goal of making science, technology, engineering, math, or STEM concepts more accessible and relatable to everyday life. Thank you for joining. If you're on YouTube, make sure you do like the stuff that people do on YouTube, like the liking and the commenting and subscribing and all that stuff. And if you're joining us wherever you're listening to podcasts, feel free to also rate, review, and share our podcast. We want other people to learn this important information. Today, we have a really good episode today. Very excited to talk about something that I feel like is very like on the top of everyone's mind, especially now, greenwashing in beauty. And we have an esteemed guest who is able to break that down for us. Go ahead.
Yeah, so we have Arielle King. Arielle, want to be correct. We have Arielle King here with us today, guys. She's an environmental justice advocate and attorney. She's passionate about making environmental education inclusive and accessible to all. Arielle also holds a JD and a master's in environmental law and policy from Vermont Law School and a BA from Bard College at Simon's Rock. She was also the season 1 host of The Joy Report, which is a podcast dedicated to sharing stories about climate solutions and environmental justice grounded in intersectionality, optimism, and joy. All great things. Currently, Arielle is the director of programming at the Black Girl Environmentalist. So welcome, Arielle.
Welcome.
Amazing. Thank you so much for having me. It's always so awkward to like sit here with people talking about you.
I'm the same way.
Yeah.
But yes, thank you so much for having me. I really appreciate it. Excited to be here.
Excited to have you. We're really, really excited to have you. Maya's going to kick us off with something that we like to do before we get into like sciencey stuff. So go ahead.
Yeah. So the first part of our episodes are human verification. And that is when we just ask you like a fun, get to know you question so you are relatable to our consumers. So our question for the day is, what is your favorite hairstyle to wear when you're on vacation?
Ooh, I think, all right. These days I would say that it's like knotless goddess braids. There's something so like extravagant about wearing knotless goddess braids. I just feel so free. I'm in like my bohemian era, and it just feels right when I'm on vacation. So yeah. And I feel like, I probably don't take care of them the way I'm supposed to. I think you're not supposed to like wet the like human hair part very much, but I be motion. I don't know. I don't know. It still looks fine to me afterwards. So I think it's all about maintenance and like knowing what to do afterward. So that's definitely my favorite hairstyle for vacation these days.
Are you a hair jewelry yes or no? Leave it at home.
So I like the idea of hair jewelry. I feel like I've never really like gotten into it as an adult. Like I remember having just like barrettes in every single color imaginable as a kid, right? Like I did braids with beads for way too long, if you ask me, you know? So like I'm no stranger to the hair accessories, but I feel like as an adult, I've not explored that as much. I've decided that I'm going to lock my hair this year.
Whoa.
And so I'm excited to experiment with some jewels and like fun accessories when I start that journey. So
that is
it's coming.
That's a huge decision. I know like several people in my like immediate circle, they're just like, yeah, I'm going to go get locks. And I'm like, go ahead. Yeah, I think you should do that.
Good for you, sis.
Yes.
Got it.
So congratulations on making that.
Thank you.
No, that's awesome.
Yes.
So another goal on our podcast really is to make sure that we're not only just like talking about STEM concepts, but our listeners and our audience have the ability to understand like there's a possibility in STEM as well in terms of career opportunities. So we want to first
Yeah.
stop and ask, like, what does it mean to be an environmentalist? And like, how do you get that background?
Sure. Well, I suppose I'll preface that question by saying I think everyone is an environmentalist. I believe that as humans, we are inherently environmentalists because we are engaging with the environment every single day, no matter what. And the environmental justice movement, which is very deeply grounded in like this very intersectional approach and the protection and preservation of our people, the environmental justice movement expanded the definition of the environment to include where we live, work, and play. So when you think about that definition, we're really up in it every single day. And so I feel like, as humans, we're all environmentalists. So I'll start there. But my career path in the environmental space really started just as a young person, really expressing a lot of gratitude and appreciation for this planet. And that was instilled in me by my parents, by incredible mentors that helped me get outside and learn how to canoe and fish and hike and like all of these really fun things. I'm originally from upstate New York. And so I spent a lot of time in the Adirondacks and spent a lot of time on the Hudson River doing different like ecology projects. So yeah, I think that's definitely where my love and passion for protecting the planet came from. So as was mentioned in my description in my intro, I have a BA in environmental and sustainability studies with a concentration in political ecology. And to me, that like married so many of my different interests. It's like, yes, I want to protect the planet. But yes, I also want to protect and advocate for my people and people who are being most adversely impacted by environmental harm. And I want to understand on a global scale how relationships to nature are formed and how they're dictated by culture, history, politics, all of these different factors, right? And so, yeah, that's kind of what propels me in this work. And I did my senior thesis in undergrad on the Flint, Michigan water crisis. And this was in 2016. So kind of at like the peak of the crisis, like when it was first declared a federal, like a national emergency. And I don't know, it was just such a clear instance of environmental racism in the ways that we are forgotten when industry leaves our cities, right? And it's like who gets left behind, who decides to stay, who can't leave, and what happens to people when they are just completely overlooked by politics and overburdened by environmental harm. And so that like made me really, really interested and excited about like how to improve environmental law. So that's kind of like my trajectory. And so I did my master's in environmental law and policy. I did my law degree focused on civil rights and environmental law to be able to understand like what's going on with environmental law, like why it's not adequately protecting our people, and also just figuring out like what the gaps are in order to provide services to individuals, to companies to be able to fill those gaps. So that's kind of been my journey. And I'm really supporting Black Girl Environmentalist and encouraging and inviting more Black women, non-binary folks to get involved in environmentalism and make people feel like this is something that's accessible to them, even if they don't have a like long track record of doing environmental advocacy or didn't study environmentalism in school. That shouldn't be a hindrance or a barrier for people's entry into environmental action or just feeling like they can be involved in the movement to protect our planet. That was a very long answer, but
great one.
That's the vibe right now.
Good. I think everybody is very much interested in preservation across all forms. And I like how you talked about the relationship with nature. It kind of personifies it a little bit. It makes it more relatable to know that like I depend on all these things and all these things depend on me and we should take care of it. Mm-hmm. And so I think one of the other things you mentioned was specifically for people of color. And I just wanted to get some perspective from you on why people of color, women of color specifically, should have a strong focus on sustainability and environmental protection.
Sure. I mean, as simply that I can describe, the most simple way I can describe that is that we are being most impacted by environmental harm. So many of our hair products. I mean, we're seeing all these studies now talking about how like relaxers are causing like all of these hair issues. We knew this already, but there are like real studies proving this now. It's showing that there's just like cancer causing elements in so many of our hair and skin products. And these are products that are targeted at women of color communities, specifically Black communities, at a far disproportionate rate. We think about the fact that in the United States, Black people and just people of color generally are most likely to live near toxic or hazardous waste facilities, and also landfills and other like sanitation sites, like far more so than our white counterparts. And this has been a like proven and studied thing since at least the 80s, the 1980s, when like the Toxics, Waste, and Race report came out and showed that race has been the single most significant indicator of proximity to these harmful facilities that are obviously causing severe harm to our bodies and to our lives. With these high concentrations of pollution sources, they're obviously impacting our health in very severe ways. So for example, for various and sundry reasons, but part of it is definitely because of these high levels of pollution. Black women are not only at a higher risk of dying after giving birth compared to their white counterparts, but we're experiencing the highest adverse risks and adverse birth outcomes due to environmental effects like climate change and pollution. So, people who are living in more heavily polluted areas have pre-existing issues. We have higher rates of asthma. We have higher rates of different forms of cancer than our white counterparts, which is obviously creating, unsafe outcomes when it comes to when we are deciding to give birth. And so they're just, it's all so connected. And then when you think about fast fashion, for example, which is, a huge topic that so many of us are becoming more aware of right now, and recognizing that this has a severe impact on the planet, but it is also very much a human rights issue. So, fast fashion produces about 92 million tons of textiles that end up in landfills annually, which is the equivalent of about one full garbage truck dumping into a landfill every single second, which is so mind-blowing to even like conceptualize.
Oh my goodness.
Every second.
It's crazy. Every second. And so, it's scary. And you think about how like low income women, marginalized women all over the world are most impacted by fast fashion, most disproportionately working in fast fashion factories. Let's talk about like Shein, for example. Like many Shein employees were found to be making like 500 items a day at about like 2 cents per item. That's what they're receiving. And some of their employees are working like 75-hour weeks and only having like 2 to 3 days off per month. And in LA, per month. Like this is outrageous. This is the impact of fast fashion. This is like what, as consumers, when we're choosing to shop at places like Shein, like we are contributing to the exploitation of women, really. And so, yeah, this is why we have to talk about these things, because I mean, last year in 2022, Shein was the number one used Googled like shopping site, period. And so and the amount of clothing that they produce, the amount of trends that they are contributing to, and it's just like this heightened consumption is causing severe issues for the planet and people. So it's a whole thing. So those are just some reasons why women of color should be aware of what's going on and have just orient ourselves in what's going on with the environment and be more aware of sustainability issues.
Yeah. And I think that's a really good perspective. Like, especially like Maya and I, we have a business, My Beauty, and Maya hand makes all of our products. So imagining that on that scale, like,
amazing.
Thank you.
Would you want to be paid 2 cents?
Yeah, no, that's exactly what I was thinking about.
Right.
We said 2 cents. Yeah. I'm not struggling, but like the 30 product at our quality a day range is a little tough for me. So imagining having to stay up to the quota of 500 products for 2 cents a product, it's just, And the opposite could be happening. There is so much work there in production there. It could be done the right way and could be helping to provide for their families in a way that someone would actually like to live, but it's not. And that is worth noting and worth not supporting.
Yeah, that's right. That's really a good perspective. I have some stuff in my cart I guess I ain't gonna buy.
Look. We're on a tour of throwing out everything and sending back everything. So you've already.
Well, I mean, don't send it back though, because so many of these companies, like, they'll just throw it away. Yeah. Like they generally don't like resell items that they receive. So, I mean, it's so much better to like keep what you have. I'm a huge advocate of like, if you are using fast fashion, because I recognize that like we can't all afford to not. To completely not avoid fast fashion. But something I'm really big on is focusing on how like wearability. So like if you know that this can be well integrated into your closet and you can wear it on more than just one occasion, then that's a good purchase. If you're maintaining the items, like if you see a hole in it, you're just like hemming that up instead of throwing it away or like something like, that's making a big difference because you are lessening what goes into landfills and you are contributing to a more circular, economy. So yeah, just wanted to throw that out there. Please don't send the things back, please.
That's also good to know. I think it's ever evolving. We're always learning and things start to come up like this that are inherent. Okay, can't use that, throw it away. Yeah. And instead it's like, no, maybe let's look at the other avenues. So I appreciate that.
Yeah. I think that's a good perspective. Yeah. And I think now like there are some people who've gotten to the point where they're like, okay, yeah, like I understand that some of these things are toxic and that I need to evaluate it. But now they're like, everywhere they see a company saying like eco-friendly, good for you, good for the environment, sustainable. Yeah. And people are just throwing out this words. And now we have this problem of like greenwashing. But can you like let people know like what is greenwashing? And I guess we'll start there.
Yeah. So I think the most simple definition of greenwashing is like a company's false claim that deceives a consumer into believing that their products are good for the planet. So I also, while I was preparing for this episode, I saw that Merriam-Webster actually just added an official definition for greenwashing 6 days ago. This is very recent.
Right on time.
I know. Right on time. So I do want to just share that definition. So it's the act or practice of making a product, policy, activity, etc., appear to be more environmentally friendly or less environmentally damaging than it really is. It's actually a very simple concept. So one of the elements of that is like using these like buzzwords like, eco-friendly, reusable, like all of these things. Another is to simply like and actually just make their products and their packaging green, because automatically in our minds we associate that with being environmentally friendly. So like literally just using green packaging and labels or like green symbols is another like very common practice of greenwashing.
Wow.
That's crazy because I think I often find myself in the store like, oh, that looks good. What is that?
Eco-friendly. I always say, ooh, that looks
like, good. That's good. But okay, so we know we can be swayed by looks. We can be swayed by words. In this culture today, everybody is looking for receipts. We need to know, we need to understand exactly how we can prove that you are who you say you are. We need to fact check everything. Yeah. Show me the receipts. What is a way to identify if something is truly clean and a sustainable brand?
So one thing is checking the brand's website. So generally, if a brand is doing all that they say they're doing, there will be like a sustainability and environmental section on their website explaining just how they were accomplishing these things. And most will actually have like official certifications from different nonprofits or like certifying agencies to prove that they are using good products. So some of those certification companies or organizations are like the USDA's organic certification. So like, are they actually using organic materials? There's a nonprofit called Green Seal, and they develop standards for companies to comply with for environmentally friendly labeling. Another one is the Non-GMO Project. project certification, and then just like the fair trade certification. So those are just a few to look for. But yeah, I would say the very easiest way is to just straight up look on the company's website and be like, okay, what does it say on your website? Like, if they're just like, if it's just a paragraph being like, yes, we care so much about the planet. It's like, I'm going to have to question that, right? Like, I'm really going to have to.
Do you really?
Right. So yeah, I would say like that basic amount of like further inquiry will generally lead you to like making a determination or a better determination about what you're consuming.
That's really, really helpful. And I know we kind of touched on this before, but for a while I felt like the standard of sustainability was, do you recycle? Like, do you recycle? Oh yeah. I'm sustainable. But is like recycling enough? Like, does that make me sustainable if I recycle?
Okay, so I would say it depends.
Okay.
It would depend. It depends. And I always try to reinforce that, like, remember those 3 R's that we learned about in school, like reduce, reuse, recycle. I would say that there should always be a greater emphasis on reducing and reusing, and then recycling as like that third option, right? Because like, let's think about plastics, for example. A lot of us think that we can recycle all plastic products, and that is just unfortunately so far from the truth. Like so far as to say that like 95% of things that are deemed recyclable in terms of plastics aren't. And in 2022, only 5% of the 380 tons of plastic produced were actually recycled, which is terrifying and like really crazy to think about.
What is happening?
So often, I know. So there's like frequently a difficulty in sorting the products appropriately. So when I was up in Vermont for school, I learned that in the state of Vermont, when they receive like a load of recycled items, if they find that like as a certain percentage of the items are contaminated, they weren't cleaned out well or something like that, they have to throw away that entire like haul of recycled items because of the contamination. So that's an issue. And there's also just the issue of like plastics being made with so many chemicals that they just simply cannot properly break down into new recyclable items. And I should also mention that like plastic companies have known this for a very long time. They have known that plastic is not actually recyclable since like the 1970s.
What?
And they have spent, oh yes. Plastic companies are so devilish. That's like a whole separate podcast episode, literally. Oh my gosh. But essentially, they've sold the message to consumers that plastic is recyclable and should be used as an alternative to things like glass.
Right. Yeah.
And so like from 1989 all the way through the 90s, the plastic industry spent about $50 million on advertising and campaigns to promote plastic. And so when like you might recall, like you're seeing like photos and videos and things from like the 80s and the 70s, like milk, for example, came in glass. Most soda came in glass. And then there was just like this switch that happened. And initially it was like, oh, it's safer. It's more convenient. No, it's just going to put more dollars into the plastic companies' pockets. And they did that very intentionally. So yeah, recycling is honestly not even like that girl anymore. It really never has been, but it's a part of this holistic system of like trying to create better outcomes. And I would say that generally like our consumption as individuals, it creates, it dictates trends and what companies will do. And so if we are saying we don't want plastic products and we are opting to like, if there's a choice between plastic and glass, for example, we're opting for the glass option, then they're going to have to produce less plastic items because we're just not buying them. And so, our habits do dictate those decisions long term, definitely.
Wow. Well, I've learned a lot already, and I'm like, okay, so maybe not. We need to focus now on not producing so much trash and not producing so much waste, throwing things away quick. I think there is a group of young adults now that acquire a lot of things. And I think it's trendy to do so. I think we are in a position, especially the working young adult class, where we, you just got your little first job, you're running, you got a little money, you're going to get this and this and this, all the things you dreamed of. And that becomes secondary. So I want to understand how we can make, in the midst of feeling successful and wanting to get the things that we've always dreamed of, how can we put sustainability, environmentally friendly practices in the forefront? Or like, what are just some tips that you currently do? Like a 1-2 check. Like, this is what you should think of before you go there or buy that.
Yeah. So one of my main things is I try to do secondhand first when it comes to a lot of items. So, think about, first of all, it's so fun to look for like vintage luxury items. And it makes like your purchases, one, like things were just made better. Like before, like there was just a higher integrity of products. And so their staying power is longer. So if you find like a leather purse from the 80s, it'll most likely be of far better quality than what you would get if you just walked into a luxury brand today. So there's definitely a benefit in that. I would say, again, just thinking about like when you're purchasing items, am I going to use this more than once, or am I going to wear this more than once? Or better yet, how can I make sure that I'm incorporating this into my wardrobe enough times for it to be worth the price or worth the investment? So some people suggest thinking about like, will I wear this item 40 times or more? And so if you think about it that way, like then it generally is a worthy spend. And when you're doing that, you're wanting to maintain the item so that it can look good for all 40 wears, which really just helps incentivize this idea of just taking care of your stuff, which is really important. And I think that's a huge, huge sustainable practice, is just taking care of the things that you already have, reusing them, or finding ways to like swap items. I love a good clothing swap, like just getting rid of clothes that you have and exchanging them with people who are tired of their clothes.
Well, I swap with Maya all the time. I swap with, I am sustainable.
Not steal. Stop it.
I am sustainable. I swap with Maya all the time.
Don't encourage her. But yes, we do.
I'm sorry.
We do that often. But I thought you were saying, like, is there a, well, other than like the thrifting shops that you can go give your clothes, and then you can also purchase secondhand clothes. Is there, do you know of any other forms that people may not know of for things like that?
Yeah, there are a few like online retailers that accept any clothing. So one is called 4 Days, and the reason I really like 4 Days is like you buy a like $20 take back bag, and when in that bag you can put old textiles of any sort. So you can put like old towels that you've been like wanting to get rid of, old sheets, pillowcases, things like that. And they will recycle all of those items and make new ones that they sell on their website.
Oh, wow.
That's awesome.
So that's a really fun. Yeah, I really love 4 Days. There are some other like online thrift stores that have similar models, like ThredUp. However, like ThredUp is generally a bit more picky about the items that they take. And so I personally have been using 4 Days more often for that reason, just because I can get rid of more items at once, and it doesn't have to be of a certain quality for it to be accepted. And when you pay for the take back bag, it's like giving you credit on the website so that you can like use that to like purchase any other items in the future. So that's a fun thing. I think for like vintage stuff, there's always like Depop and all of these things. Like for luxury stuff, the Real, there's so many different like places that you can look online for like good alternatives. Also for like furniture and things, Facebook Marketplace is like the best place. Yeah, like we love Facebook Marketplace. And so, that's a really good option. I know some furniture stores like IKEA, for example, they now have like a as is section.
Oh, yeah, they do.
That's like things. Yeah. And so like, that's a way that you can get like cheaper items for that are like secondhand, but you can like do a little bit of fixing and it'll last for a long time. So there are definitely ways to reimagine the ways that we are existing in this like very consumerist society. You can still have nice things, right? Like, and we can still pay for things if that's what we want to do with our money. But it's really about like being more intentional about what we are consuming, making sure that if there is an alternative, like at least considering it. Because there are some things I will not buy secondhand, right? And like that's okay. And so just like being really honest with yourself about that, but also like when there are options to think through like more reusable practices, more reusable buying habits, like really taking those into consideration. Another like way to think about that is like some of the reusable or refillable products, like I'm seeing like a huge,
in beauty especially,
increase in like in beauty. One example that I think about a lot is like hand soap. So like, the Bath and Body Works, like foaming, like hand soap that they have. It's like $8 for one, and they frequently do like the 5 for $27 or something. So there are brands that are now like, you can buy the refill dispenser that has like the foaming thing, and you can buy like tablets to refill. And you just like add the tablet and add water, shake it up, and you have, your soap. And so there are definitely a lot of like really cool, like alternate ways to like still engage in the fun things that like bring us joy and that smell really good. Like this one brand, Blue Land, they have like so many different scents of like these like little tablets. I think the one I have in my bathroom right now is like warm vanilla chai. They have like a bunch of really fun scents. And so that's an option that is, not single use. You're not contributing to this, like all of this plastic that's ending up in our landfills and disproportionately in our waterways. And I didn't even get into this, but like it is proposed and projected that by the year 2050, if we are still consuming and producing plastic in the way that we are right now, then plastic will outpopulate fish in the ocean. Yeah. So
there's nothing. Wow.
We got some work to do. We got some work to do.
Yeah. And I also think one of the things that I appreciate about like you in the work that you've been doing is you really do try to take that optimistic approach to like how we're viewing these things. Like a lot of these numbers and statistics that we're hearing are like, man, that's really sad, but it's a lot to take in. And we see like certain, like in the industry, like we see, especially beauty, companies try to make strides to like, for sustainability to be cool, like whether you talked about it, refillable packaging, or I've seen a lot of other things, like just you can go in the store, refill, whatever the case may be. But what are your thoughts around just, especially with packaging with beauty? Because I know that that's a not the problem, but a source of the problem. What are your thoughts on sort of those efforts, and what are some things that like make good sense, like sustainability wise, and are not just more greenwashing?
Yeah, I think one thing that we need to think about is how circular can we make these products? Like how reusable can we make them? So for example, there's a toothpaste brand that with every container of toothpaste that they sell, they give you like a little metal piece that like helps you roll the toothpaste tub to get to like every last drop of it, which I think is so cool, so awesome. But if you buy that toothpaste exclusively, then you have a lot of these metal thingies like run like in your life. So like, what would it look like to be able to purchase an purchase that item without the little metal piece in future uses, once you have like one or two of them in your life? I will say I have two right now, and I use it for like my face wash. I use the second one for my face wash to like get the very last of that as well. So, there are like fun ways that you can, reuse these items that you receive. But I think that's a really important point. Also for like the refillable products, what would it look like to have like buyback programs or like incentives for people to bring back their empties. I'm thinking about MAC lipstick, for example. Like if you bring back a certain amount of your empties, you get a free one. I know that Lush does that as well for some of their products. Like if you bring back a certain amount of your empty containers, you get a discount on your next purchase. I think incentivizing consumers in that way is good for the planet. It's good for the company because they don't have to spend as much on like recreating these products or refilling these items. And yeah, it just promotes a culture of reusable items. So I think all of those things are really cool. One of the challenges I think with some of these reusable products is price and accessibility. Frequently, these items are more expensive. And so it's like, how do we make this more accessible? Because like, for example, the hand soap example that I used, the dispenser by itself is $35. And if you want to get a pack of like refill tablets, it's like $25 for 6 of them. So you're already spending $60. Yes, it will like last you a long time. And yes, you'll only need to purchase the refill packets moving forward. But that initial investment can be intimidating to people. So yeah, I think that there should be something thought about in that regard for sure. Yeah, because I mean, accessibility is really important. If people feel like items are inaccessible because of their price, despite whether the long-term benefits are going to be really good, it's just going to limit people's interest in engaging in that product and purchasing that product. Which makes just sustainability as a whole feel inaccessible. So yeah, I think that's a really important thing that I think companies should be thinking about a bit more.
Yeah, I think speaking of like what companies are thinking about, a lot of the times when we see new companies come out with something that's, I guess, innovative and cool to use, and it seems like it would make your life easier, but then there's that adverse effect that it may make being environmentally friendly and sustainable harder, or it may have health effects on you, as you're talking about at the top of the episode. It causes a little conflict. Mm-hmm. And one of the areas in which we've seen this recently is in the lawsuits against Thinx. We both.
That was a hard day when I had to read that.
Yeah, she called me. She was like, "Did you see this?" We both. It's not okay. So can you, so they know, so everybody's up to speed on what's going on. Can you tell us a little bit about that? What those forever chemicals are, and why it matters that happened?
Totally. So, for those who aren't aware, Thinx is a alleged sustainable, period product company. We recognize that many period products, whether it be tampons or pads or other items, have harmful chemicals in them, whether it be from bleaching the products to make them completely white, because Americans are like obsessed with things being like very white to equate them being clean. So, it means that a lot of chemicals are in our stuff as a result of that. But so a lot of people have started to switch to like period underwear as a like safe way to just live your life while you're menstruating. And so Thinx has become one of the most popular brands for these types of products. And last year, a group of people brought a lawsuit against Thinx after identifying health issues that they had been experiencing that could be linked to the use of these period underwear and the existence of PFAS, which are a group of man-made chemicals used in products to resist heat, oil, stains, grease, and water. So these items can be found in nonstick cookware, certain shampoos, dental floss, food packaging like popcorn bags and candy wrappers. They're everywhere, unfortunately. Right. Me too. I literally was just eating popcorn. It's not good. It's like not healthy. And I mean, one alternative to that, and I'm going to start doing this soon, is just like buying kernels and those like silicone, like stasher bags. They're like fully microwavable. And so you can make popcorn in those bags, like with just kernels. So that's what I'm going to start doing. Once I'm done with this box of popcorn, I'm done.
You're good.
I'm done.
You're gonna go.
Yes. Anyway, so all of like PFAS, we're also finding that these man-made chemicals are considered forever chemicals, which means that they cannot be broken down naturally in the environment. So as a result, these chemicals have also been around for decades now. And so as a result of this, they have been found in our water sources, in fish, in livestock, and in human bodies. So that's what's happening. There have been, studies that have found that Thinx underwear has these chemicals in them. The company alleges that they never intended to include PFAS in their products. Regardless of what they intended, that is what occurred. And so they're, gosh. Anyway, so yeah, it's just like, ugh. Anywho, so this company, they settled the lawsuit with these people who allegedly sued, and it has now become a large class action lawsuit. So anyone who has purchased Thinx underwear can become a part of the class. So if you would like to receive compensation from this settlement, if you own Thinx underwear, you have a few options. You can either opt out of the lawsuit completely by not doing anything. You have, I believe, until the second week of April. And I can send you information that you can add to the show notes. But essentially, there are like 4 ways that you can engage in this settlement. One is to like actually choose to be involved by like showing your receipts for your underwear that you have purchased from this company. If you have a receipt, I believe you receive $7 per pair. And if you don't have a receipt, it's like $3.50, which both of those numbers really hurt my soul because I recall paying like $35 for one pair. You know what I'm saying? Like, I don't like that. And you can only do it for up to 3 pairs. So if you have more than 3, like you're only getting $21 regardless, which
beyond the money and it hurting because I paid well over that, this is going directly against my skin. Like to be...
Yes.
What's going on? Like what?
Yeah.
Like,
and like with and like where exactly like the PFAS is existing in these underwear, like severe possibilities of absorption, like direct absorption into our like very critical parts as women. And so that's very scary. And so you have like the option of also opting out of the class action so that if, God forbid, anything happens to you as a result of using these underwear, that you can sue on your own. But if you opt out or if you like ask for the settlement amount, then you are waiving your right and your ability to be able to sue later if anything does arise in your personal life from using these products. So I definitely will send all the information so that all the listeners can be fully aware and just know what their options are as part of this lawsuit. But this really leans into a broader issue of just PFAS being everywhere. And something that's been really interesting for me is that I'm like, okay, well, what do we do with our Thinx underwear now that we're not using them? Because my fear is that if we're putting them into landfills and the landfills aren't properly lined, then we are contributing to even more environmental harm than good. And so, like, what does that look like? And how do you properly dispose of things that have PFAS? And I have been searching and searching on Beyonce's internet unsuccessfully, finding like what we're supposed to do to find and figure out like how to properly dispose of items with PFAS. And so I think the alternative is to figure out and hold companies accountable to not using these products and these chemicals in the first place, because there are reasonable alternatives. So that's that really. Very scary stuff.
Yeah, I think this week has been.
There's no positive spin to that one. I'm sorry.
You were doing great though.
You were doing really well. Really well.
I'm sorry.
I think this week alone, we've been introduced to so many things that hurt women specifically in a very strong way,
Yeah.
especially with our reproductive organs and things of such. And I think that part of the problem is that, like, you hear that things will be harmful, but you don't know how much. And I think that one of the things that happened because of so many harmful chemicals out there is that people have become desensitized to it. And they're like, oh, everything has that cancer label on it. It's not anything, but it's still, it can still hurt you. Like, that's a pretty strong claim to have to be regulated to put on your product for everybody to just kind of be waving it away now. So I think it's good that the conversation comes up of not only stop using them, but then, like, if we're going to go on this journey together, figure out what's the best way to dispose of what you have and only get things that, you know, can be cyclical, like you said, and be reused.
Yeah. Right.
Wow.
Wow. I just just wanted to breathe for a second. Don't mind me.
Right. No, very necessary. I understand.
So we have like a couple of categories that we want like help with. So we want to focus on like the 3 aspects. So like packaging, a huge one, the product, and then the processes. So we want to like understand and get your expertise on what language should we look out for, or should we like run to verify when we think, or what language are flags in our mind that if we're just reviewing it are not really the best in terms of sustainability. So let's talk first about packaging. So when we find green packaging or any packaging for that matter, what are some words that should or send red flags for you specifically?
Yeah, recyclable is unfortunately one of those words for me these days. And compostable is also an interesting one that we're seeing a lot more, because some items, in certain circumstances, that means that if you throw it away in a landfill, it will like decompose on its own and not contribute to like landfill waste over time. In other cases, that means you have to like actually make sure that it is like broken down in a certain way and like integrated with soil or with other composting materials to like actually compost. So there's like a slight distinction there. So just like reading the label and just Googling like which is which in that circumstance is helpful. And then I guess just to reinforce like some of these certifications, I think it's really important to just like be aware of what they are and whether the products that you're looking at have those certifications on them. And then just for labeling, some of the like key kind of buzzwords for greenwashing that like if they are not substantiated by some like actual claims or certifications, you should definitely be weary of. Some of those are like eco-friendly, green, all natural, earth-friendly, non-toxic, plant-based, plant-derived, pure, raw, organic, like all of these things that you automatically would just assume like are good for the planet are frequently used to deceive us into believing that products are actually better for the planet than they actually are.
Wow, that's something we had to take back because our shipping, I'm pretty sure we're good though, but our shipping containers that we like ship out our products in, we have a compostable label, like shipping label and compostable packaging, but we're going to double check because we don't want to mislead anyone about that at all.
It's like, it does make you take a look in. Yeah, I will definitely give another look at it. All of the products that we use to ship our products out. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but it's an incredible thing that you already are like thinking about that and it's already like integrated into your business model. So yeah, we need more small businesses like y'all for sure.
Wow. That means a lot.
It's true. It's true.
No, that means a lot because we did see exactly what makes people turn away. We were looking and there was nothing, like you would look at something and it would say recyclable, compostable, all these things. And then you go and it's like plastic and other chemical things. And then you're just searching for hours and hours and hours because it is not accessible. So I think that, we got to move. It has to be accessible to care like that. Why isn't that accessible? I think
Right.
she did the intro. The next thing was like the actual products. Like what can we look for in the actual product, the chemicals, the ingredients, to throw up red flags for us.
Yeah, I mean, looking at product labels, especially for like beauty products, the more products you actually can pronounce, the better, right? Like just generally, I think that's like a general rule that's really helpful in determining whether your products are have a large amount of chemicals in them. Sometimes, of course, that's inevitable, but if it's like a water-based product, most likely that's going to be better than something where the first ingredient is something that you can't say out loud because like even phonetics are not helping you in that situation, right? Like, so that's definitely something to think about. And then for like clothing, if you're looking at goodness, and a whole potential other episode could be about like vegan leather and like what that means, right? Like, yeah, because there's such a varied, like so much vegan leather right now is actually just plastic. And so it's like, is that actually better for the planet? Probably not, right? So like thinking about it in that way, like it's like all of these things to think about. But we are seeing like really cool like alternatives. So like, for example, when Brandon Blackwood re-released his End Systemic Racism purses, a lot of them were used, a lot of the textiles were like recycled denim. He also had an apple leather purse. And so apple leather is one that's like becoming a lot more common and popular, but it's essentially using the scraps from apple juice production. And they like press them and process them and do all the things. And then it becomes leather. So
that's
cool. So actually I got a purse from that collection and it's really cute. So yeah, there's definitely a movement to like really be intentional about like, even if we're claiming that something is vegan, that does not always mean that it's better for the planet. So I think that's another thing to definitely like look at and think about.
My brother always says, yeah, crack is vegan too. So that's his that's a so just moving on. But
yeah, I mean, there is that.
In terms of processes, like what are some things that we need to look out for? We talked a little bit about like fair trade, but let's dive into that a little bit more.
Sure. I mean, it's really just a matter of, again, just checking in to see like one, like where products are being made, and then like looking up like what the factories are up to when it comes to their manufacturing. Because, and generally, like I said, if they're true about what they believe in and what they are planning and how intentional and, you know, environmentally friendly the company is aiming for, they will have all of this information on their website. Like, we are ensuring that we are providing sustainable practices and we are doing all of these things for our employees to ensure their safety and like blah, blah, blah. All of those things should exist on a website of like a huge corporation if they are like being about what they say they are. One really good example of this is in like Burt's Bees actually is like a great example of a company that is like very, very employee first. And so like, for example, the shea butter that they use in a lot of their products is being sourced from different countries in Africa. And like they work with woman-owned farms and women farmers to be able to like produce those products. And on the off season, when they're not able to like produce those products like while farming, the company provides them with services to support finding jobs on the off season, so that the employees will be like fully compensated the full year, regardless of whether they're actually working for Burt's Bees. So that's like one example of a company that's like actually doing the work and like being very intentional about not only where they're getting their products from, but how they're like supporting and sustaining those who work for their company. So yeah, it's really about like doing that little extra bit of research about a company to see like whether they are, like I said, about what they're actually claiming they're about.
Yeah, and I think Maya and I both try to, at least in our businesses, put doing things right the first time up front. So
Mhm.
I think that's something to consider for small businesses as well, to just add that extra layer of transparency and start, even if you're starting small, let people know what you're doing for your environment and for your community. So yeah, I think we'll take
Yeah.
another look at our website to add something like that, because
A
we're
page
doing
going
the
up
things,
tonight.
but
Yeah.
I think it's important for people to know and have that like security of being sure that this is actually what's going on. All great. You gave us some great tips today, but can you share one final call to those who are like, listening to this, they thought they were doing it the right way, but they're ready for like that next level of step into being more environmentally respectful. What is one thing that you can tell them to kind of push them into taking action?
Yeah. I would say look local. I'd say, like, if you have to choose fast fashion, if you have to choose, things that might not be best for the planet, at the very least, purchase them locally. Don't buy from Amazon. Like, investing in your local community and finding ways to support the people around you, building community, and yeah, just supporting local businesses is a really important thing to do. And it will decrease the amount of time that it takes for items to get to you, one, but it also reduces the impact of receiving that product in the first place. We're finding that cargo ships that are coming from other countries to bring products for big companies like Walmart and Target and all of these things are creating severe harm to the oceans and emitting ridiculous amounts of carbon dioxide. So, like, thinking about ways to eliminate some of that, shopping for local groceries, thinking about doing and purchasing things while they're in season so they don't have to travel as far. And really, and one that's just better for you. I always say, like, if you're buying like a piece of fruit that's out of season, it's going to be overpriced and not taste as good. So what's the point, right? So, like, really thinking about and learning about what's in season and how you can, like, again, just contribute to your local community. Volunteering, I think, is a really important part of environmentalism, even if it's not a part of an environmental organization. Just finding ways to give back to the world around you will, one, make you feel better, make you feel better connected to your space, and it will help you observe just how wonderful the natural environment is while you're engaging in it, because you're contributing to making it better. So those are some tips.
This is a really great episode. I learned a lot. I feel like
Oh.
every time we sit down, Maya and I are like, we have so much work to do. Like,
Yeah.
we have so many things that we need to think about after this. But we
Yeah.
really appreciate your time. If you don't mind, can you share with our listeners and our audience where they can find you, where they can learn and get more tips from you? And we'll also put it in the show notes, but go ahead and say it.
Sure. Yeah. So my username is Arielle V King on all the socials. You can find me on all of them. And I would also definitely encourage people to follow Black Girl Environmentalist. We are in the process of developing our hub program. So in addition to some of the programming that some people have already seen on our Instagram, we will be having like monthly in-person activations in multiple cities across the US and are working on expanding outside of the US very soon to a few places. So we're very, very excited about the growth. And so if you want to support in any way, whether it just be following, attending events, coming to our virtual stuff, donating if you have the means to do so, we always encourage all of that. And so I definitely want to just push people to Black Girl Environmentalist as well.
Wow. That's very exciting to hear. I'm actually very excited to join. If you guys are in North Carolina, or Virginia, or Georgia, any of those places, we will definitely do our best to show up, because I think that everything that you're doing is amazing. And I think that just the education alone is so important. So you can start to understand why do you even need to change?
Yeah.
So yes, we are so excited. We thank you so much for being here with us today. We will tag all of your and Black Girl Environmentalist and social medias in the show notes, so everybody will be able to get to you and learn more. But thank you so much. Thank you everyone else for tuning in with us today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the things that you normally do to get the information to all your best friends. You know what to do.
You know what you need to do.
Don't forget to do that. Don't forget to join us next time to learn more about the science behind beauty with the beauty system. You can find us on Instagram at The Beauty System, The Beauty Sis, like hey sis, and STEM, like science, technology, engineering, math, at The Beauty System. See you guys next time. Bye, sis.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Beauty System podcast. If you haven't had the chance yet, please like, rate, subscribe, do all of the YouTube and podcast things so that more people can learn about the science behind their beauty.
And don't forget to follow us on Instagram at The Beauty System. That's The Beauty Sis, as in hey sis, and STEM as in science, technology, engineering, and math. Bye, sis.
Bye, sis.